Broke my back a little. Oh, man. I'm picking up on the couch being an asshole. That was probably. I hate everything. I hate everything. It doesn't make fucking sense. The fucking wire is way longer. It somehow fucking pulls that shit. I don't understand. And the fucking physics fucking break me. There. There you go. Alright, so Britney Spears and Jamie Spears and whatever the fuck Daniel Bryan, I don't know. And fucking the situation just getting in hand. Or it's actually getting in hand theoretically. Okay. Yeah. This man wears a fucking eye patch around. I have never seen anybody actually wear that around.
Busy parents, so when our children's education suddenly became uncertain, we felt overwhelmed. My sister recommended time for learning because.
All right, so this happened a few days ago. It is a conversation between Malcolm Nance. I hope I'm saying that right. You guys are going to call me racist. And Ben Shapiro. It's about critical race theory. Obviously, critical race theory is pumping. It's quite a hot button issue. I've looked into some critical race theory. I think with good intentions, it's a very interesting theory, and it's worth considering and investigating. I mean, if you have the time to. I don't think kids should be learning it. I think that it's very easy to either teach it as like we'll say like, white blaming or.
Well, no. If you establish correctly that it's not anti-white blaming, then it won't be anti-white blaming. That is simple. They're kids. Like, it's not. Well, they still are complex, but given to an adult human being, if you tell an adult human being, these are all the white people are bad, white people bad white people type shit, and just constantly without any like considerable point, most won't believe it. The ones that haven't really like gotten far may fucking believe it, but just most people won't believe that. You tell a fucking kid that, it will affect them. And you agree with that. You agree with that on the statement that they can be tricked into believing anti-white blaming. Yes, of course. I think that is a complete issue. But the thing is, though, if we can create a system where that never is the case, or is almost never is the case, then I feel like it's a considerable thing to teach kids very early on, so they can establish their point of views and give equality to people earlier on. Like I don't understand why it's used for why people believe it's anti-white, or why people believe it can be used for anti-white blaming. Because a lot of fucking because I think Papa God is it's not the most progressive fucking leftist even if he even considers himself that. But I'm hoping he would agree with me on the sentiment that if we can create a system that would allow kids to be taught this correctly, then it should be up on the table. And this is like teaching critical race theory to kids isn't even like the main point. The main point is trying to get the ability to teach this correctly and put this in schools through it's like a funding system. Just the fact that the school system is so fucked in terms of funding. Most school systems are fucked in terms of funding unless you're a fucking private school. And even then, is based off of fucking bribes and shit basically. But anyway, if you're trying to fund a public school, it is unbelievably difficult. It is a reason why celebrities now have tend to donate a lot to schools. It's generally schools, not even like fucking charities for schools, just schools. It is so bad that human beings had to donate money so the fucking system where we are being taught everything can can actually function. That's just insane to me. Military. We put all this money in the military, billions and billions. I fucking barely put any in the fucking school system. Barely any. Bro, it's and even the pandemic really fucked up funding for schools. I understand, it's completely different for schools, in terms of how you maintain the place, but it is on some level, you're fucking losing a lot of shit whenever the pandemic starts in terms of school. The kids are most likely going to have lower grades. Everything's going to be slower. Everything's going to be harder. You're going to have more fucking calls. You're going to have more everything. And the school system barely got any fucking assistance, And one thing I want to talk about that's really, really dear to me is the fact that most fucking teachers have to pay for the shit that they need in the class. They'll have the school usually gives them a fucking I think a laptop, the big monitor, the big TV, and the fucking desk. It's the simple shit. You add whatever the fuck you want to it. And I don't understand why these fucking teachers have to buy shit for fucking students when it's not even the school necessarily. It's the funding on the schools is fucked. It's not the fault of the school that they don't have any fucking money to pay for this shit. It's the fucking government's fault. It is the people that are in power currently. It's the fucking their fault. Whereas the people that were before them and before them and before them. I don't care if it's fucking Democrats or Republicans. Doesn't matter. Both are fucking evil. Necessarily, I'd say the Republicans are just generally a lot worse in terms of policies, but there's a big difference between them. Leftists say they're going to do something, and then when they actually get the position, they will not do it. Republicans just don't give a fuck. And there's on some form of level I can respect that because they just don't care. They do what they do. Their policies are their policies, and it is never going to change. And they make sure that that it's never going to change. And they force it. The filibuster, one of the most fucking worst things that has ever come into our goddamn government. It literally has enabled the Republican Party and to the GOP to necessarily fucking attack every leftist policy possible. And the ones that these fucking leftists do put in, they will get filibustered. They will get busted like a fucking joke. And it's crazy. Because it is insane to me that the left and the Democrats will not, and I repeat, will not listen to progressives and will not act on anything they fucking say. It is disgusting. And it is disgusting that they will not use the same exact thing the Republicans are using. This is what I believe. If a party is using a tactic that is legal, excuse me. If they're using something that is fucking legal, and it is really fucking bad, it's just a terrible fucking legal loophole. And you're constantly getting put against it. Why should you give a fuck whenever you do it back? Why should anybody be? Why should bet? Oh, you're a hypocrite. How am I a hypocrite? No, people who are hypocrites are the ones who will get pissed off whenever their fucking policies get filibustered, their policies get fucking rejected. That's just something like that.
Even interpreted learning wise as like white blaming, which is why I think that like 18-year-olds plus is an acceptable age for you to start learning these things, because they're very deep, and you do need to disconnect yourself. When it comes to critical race theory, you need to disconnect yourself from critical race theory, and because you really kind of have to understand that when you're speaking honestly within critical race theory, if you're honestly learning it or teaching it, you have to make it so you have to understand that whiteness in this context is a
what's the word for it? It's a construct. Is that the term? It's a construct. It's basically, not necessarily a construct. It's a construct in this context. I don't know how to explain it.
Why the fuck is the word leaving me right now?
That's what I'm saying. I'm fucking sitting here what the fuck? I'm thinking it's construct.
Whiteness is more of a social construct.
Fucking God! I didn't say social. I said construct. That's right. That was the word. I was thinking. I was like, is construct correct? Is construct necessarily correct here? And he was right. Okay, it is a construct. And the whiteness in this case is a social construct. It is not necessarily the race of the person you are speaking with, and they're a white person. It is a construct. It is how about this? It's like how this would be the best way to explain it. Wait, why am I trying to the best way to explain it? You just in general, how about this? The percentage of Caucasians in the country, 79%. You're not basing it off of every single person, but that's just a group of Caucasian people, and that's the whiteness, and that isn't just what it is, and that not it. Sorry, it is not just that with ethnicities. It's people who are also perceived as white, let's see, Swedish people, Polish, there's a lot of I can't fucking get it on the top of my head, but there's a lot of ethnicities that are very mixed up with the white and Caucasian shit that are believed to be people believe that they're white usually, and they don't, and they never really ask, so just never comes up. So this is the social construct. It's just whiteness in general.
These kind of terms. So yeah, let's watch this though. Let's see how the conversation goes. Let's see it. Let's get back.
This is one of my favorite fucking debates I've seen. Well, it ain't really a debate. It's more like a discussion, but.
I'm gonna make you fight again. It's okay. But I'm gonna talk about the muzzle laws. There's these laws that are been introduced in the United States to not talk about.
I fucking hate Bill Maher.
Now, critical race
he is such a fucking piece of shit. Yeah, I'm glad he shits on Republicans, but he's it's just he's such a bad fucking person. He just defends so much stupid shit.
That's fair. Something to do with race, and it's some kind of a theory.
That's true.
Right?
And he'll usually play fucking devil's advocate a lot.
Before you get to it, it's actually very interesting because I was talking the other day with Mom and Dad, and we were talking about how we were talking about trans issues, and we're talking about that society's not ready to be fully accepting of trans people, because while a lot of people on the internet are very involved in trans issues, people in the real world aren't there yet. They don't understand, and people obviously when they don't understand something, they get upset and critical. And I think that's a really good point. I've heard about critical race theory about a year ago. And so I have a better understanding of it. It's not as threatening to me. I think again the implementation can be a little risque, but most people haven't heard of it, and it's just shooting into the culture.
The issue isn't the theory itself, critical race theory. It's the people that do teach it. If some fucking this black supremacist example. If a black supremacist was to use, critical race theory to teach, people or kids, black kids to hate white people just in general, just not even, there's just nothing with it, just teaching anti-white blaming, that's bad. And the same goes for the other way. It's like every way. Same goes for that. You like if you're fucking doing anti-liking, that's like the same thing. It's just the fact. It's just we need to make a system as to where that we don't need to worry about that. We don't need to worry about the qualifications of the individual that's teaching critical race theory. If we can trust in our education, in our most, and I'm hoping the education system, we can trust in our education system that we will be taught a very deep and complex theory correctly as kids. That's just what I think. I think we could be taught this. It takes somebody that knows it, and we need people that are qualified. And again, this just goes back to the school system and just fucking teachers in general just being underpaid and underqualified. And I'm not saying that's to discredit them. These people try their hardest to fucking teach a generation of fucking students that don't really give a fuck. And it's just they're so like underqualified for the job of teaching an entire generation. That's just what I think.
And everything. And I think that that's a reasonable argument to make. It's like people don't know what it is. They're just hearing it, and they're hearing it. And you could say like, oh, well, that's just conservatives pushing it in the worst way possible.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's just the way that like normal people are interpreting it. So
I understand that. Critical race theory just sounds like a buzzword that's going around lately, which it kind of is. But
this is the stuff no one knows but you and 6 other people.
Right.
You know, it's like I don't really want to compare it to it, but it's like the idea of Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter in itself is a good thing, but the way that people, think of it, and I don't really think of it like this. I understand both sides of the situation, and I agree with Black Lives Matter more, in my opinion. But they are perceived as this group of people that are anti-white and just generally don't want equality, even though that is not what they're fighting for. They are fighting for the justice of Black individuals. That's what it is. And it's just like the way media perceives it, the way media portrays it. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be in a bad way necessarily. They don't have to portray it in a bad way. They just have to portray them in a way that people just don't really feel like that. And they did this, like media portrayed fucking, like Bill Gates as like a fucking genius. They portrayed Fauci as a fucking genius, and it just creates this like, it creates this fucking hatred for these ideas and people for no reason. That's what I think what happens.
What is it practically? It's being taught in schools or some form of.
Yes, there's a certain sort of crystallized version of it that is a lot less complex than what critical race theory actually is. But critical race theory essentially argues that racism is baked into all the systems of American society, and that any sort of neutral system is in fact a guise for racial power. And so the argument is made by Derek Bell, for example, that Brown versus Board of Education, this is an argument he made in 1991, that Brown versus Board of Education was actually a way for the white community to leverage its own power. It wasn't an attempt to end segregation in public schools. Even things that are purportedly good in terms of race, so long as they uphold these broader systems, things like capitalism or things like the meritocracy, these things are actually just guises for power. And so what that boils down to in sort of practical terms, that white people have a duty to tear down these systems in order to alleviate the racism that's implicit in those systems. When it comes to schools, what this tends to boil down to is...
I know Ben Shapiro fucking wears his kappa in almost every fucking interview he has. I know. I understand, there's like, his religion, but I swear to God, this guy does not ever... I don't know. Maybe it's like the angle his fucking show, like how the angle the camera is on a show, but I never see him wearing a kappa, ever. Unless he's on an interview. I swear to God, he did it in the Andrew Neil interview. He did it on this interview. I swear to God, he probably does it up at fucking public speakings and shit. It's just something he does in public. I don't know. I don't know whether or not like it's if it's like you don't wear it in private, you don't do it on your show and stuff. That's like something I don't understand that. I apologize, but just feels like he only wears it whenever it's convenient for him. Kind of really, like how about this? Like, most people perceive Ben Shapiro as, this, like, very fucking fast-talking, smart guy. And like I know that's like a very dumbed down explanation of what he is, but it's kind of true. It's what he is. He just talks fast, and then he puts a lot of points and like views down, and then even though he might not establish those views or points well, people will generally agree with him on it. But I swear that like every single fucking time I see him in an interview, he'll wear a fucking kappa. He'll wear the head, and I'm just astounded by it, in my opinion. It's just like he tries to like steer away from like his like religion as much as possible, unless he's in interviews. Like it's the only time I ever see like anything involving his religion.
Well, so Malcolm, you tell me you're different.
Oh, I agree with everything he just said.
Oh, great.
I appreciate you being honest and defining what it's like to be Black American, right? That is, I mean, we're talking about a system.
That's not fair.
No, I'm just saying I agree with all of those suppositions because they are grounded in truth. Look, the funny thing is, it's not just African Americans, right? It's also the Scalp Act of 1749, where for $300 modern dollars, you had to cut off the head or the hair of an Indian to prove that you got them out of.
I mean, like, I'm listening and trying to think critically, but I feel like something from 49 probably that's specifically paying to scalp people. I'm pretty sure like we all acknowledge that like that's not acceptable. So
yeah, I think we can all agree. Other than like the kind of like the I think some schools teach it, but most schools in the South don't really teach the fact that we killed basically every single Indian we met whenever we first arrived here in America. we basically killed every single fucking Indian with disease. we barely fought a single soul, but we fought them with disease. They all never, like, I don't mean to make this humor out of this, but we literally walked in with our fucking immune asses and our fucking drunks and our fucking drugs, and we basically just said, you know what, here, we're gonna give you fucking HIV, go fucking die. And that's not what that actually is. But they fucking basically did that. They just fucking said fuck it. And maybe they didn't fucking know it, but even if I think they did know it, I don't think they cared. They were like, oh, we're taking this thing anyway, fucking just throw them in the river. It's honestly probably what they thought. That's fucked up. And it just never fucking crosses the minds of people that basically we killed an entire nation of Indians. I keep apologizing for calling them Indians because this is not the correct fucking term. I apologize. Native Americans. We scalped, and then we disease killed Native Americans. I'm gonna keep using Native Americans from now on. I keep having fucking like I'm brainwashed. I'm fucking brainwashed by that shit. I grew up in Florida. That's all I hear. Indians. Fucking clearly. He's like, I swear to God, people in Florida, like and then I fucking fall to this too, like fucking 8 different ethnicities that are not Indian are apparently called Indians in this fucking state in most of the South.
It's not
stupid.
It's not a good example whatsoever of like anything to do with critical race theory.
For the way so they could settle. That's a little bit of American history that people should know about. The Chinese Exclusion Acts of the 1840s.
Like we know those were actively discriminatory, but like that's not what we're having conversations about.
Those are things we don't talk about.
It's not true that people don't talk about these things. We all did learn about
them. You want them talked about?
No, that's not true either.
You want to take cancel?
No, Malcolm, I'm sorry, you're lying. That's a lie.
Who the fuck? I'm very. He's giving history as a prequel to the argument, but then like it's not really relevant, right? So when we talk about critical race theory and like different types of oppression, what we're more focusing on are laws that are created that don't specifically actively target somebody, in like that capacity, but it would have the negative impact of disproportionately attacking somebody. That's kind of more where it comes from. And so bringing up things from like that's fine. Like, yeah, we used to have horrible laws in our country, and like a lot of countries have horrible laws as well. Like, it's okay to stone gay people to death. Like, that's terrible. That's active oppression.
That's what happens in fucking some like fucking countries. Like, not necessarily in, you know, like fucking public display type fucking rock throwing, but you know, it is in some countries it is legal to fucking literally just assault gay people just off the fact that they're gay. If you assume, even if you just assume that they're gay, you know, and you can just fucking beat them, and that is insane to me. And you know, this doesn't like fucking. This doesn't negate the fact that, you know, we still have a very fucking bad homophobia issue and just general fucking, you know, problem in fucking America and, you know, in the United States. But in countries where people don't even have our type of rights, you know, or if their rights, they're not enforced as well as they should be. So, and it's most fucking countries, it's not even the fact, you know, some of them are, you know, it's specifically the fact that they're gay, but usually it's just a loophole, or not, and yeah, it's a loophole that kind of just fucking enables that shit, you know, just never fucking, can't enforce it, and you know, most people don't want to enforce it.
Which is like the invasion of racism within our system. This doesn't really show any nuanced take of the like invasion of racism within our system.
It's just that it is lying. I personally talked about many of the things that you just mentioned. I define a critical race theory.
Oh, that's real
critical race theory. And you seem to be a pretty good beneficiary of meritocracy because you have merit on them. So if you're going to criticize the meritocracy as an outgrowth of white supremacy, then you're going to have to tear down the system that you succeeded in because you have merit. Or you do not have merit.
You know, when my great-great-grandfather ran away from slavery to join the 111th U.S. Colored Troops and fight against the South, keeping human beings as slaves, he didn't think, you know what, in 150 years, my great-great-grandson's going to have to sit on stage and argue with a guy who thinks all...
Welcome to Twin Falls.
Bullshit. All right.
Yeah, it's just kind of like I think that there's merits in critical race theory. I just don't think that this guy's really bringing a lot of merit to critical race theory, because we haven't talked about, like, here. So, like, okay, CRT covers a lot of things, but if I was going to look at a law that was like a systemically like oppressive law, for instance, I would look at like voter ID type of laws, right? Laws that are actively targeting particular groups of people to stop them from voting, right? And so, like, a lot of these laws happen in like southern states where the poor people are more disproportionately black, and so they're saying like, hey, we want people to vote Republican. Let's implement laws that will restrict people who generally vote Democrat from being able to vote, such as like, oh, you can't vote on Sundays. Well, in these poor areas, they don't have a lot of voting areas and they don't have a lot of transportation. So on Sunday, they get into their church buses and then they'll go to vote, right? Oh, you can't hand out water and whatnot on lines. Okay, or food on lines. Well, the reason why that, like...
Yeah, it's a national thing. Sundays, a lot of, you know, churchgoers, they'll either go themselves, you know, they'll feel like you know, they feel like it's their right to vote on a church day right after, and he says he also says that they get in their church buses, if they do have church buses, and they'll take a trip up to the voting station, or not voting station, but the voting machine, and then, you know, they'll all vote. Do fucking that shit up on Sundays, you know, that's really fucked up. That's specific. You know, maybe like a fucking day of the week, but that is really specific in southern states.
Like actively targets a particular group of people, which usually is poor people. But
the thing is, it is always perceived at this broad, like, fucking viewpoint where, like, you know, oh, it's not targeting them necessarily. It's just a Sunday. You're not allowed to vote on Sunday. What's wrong with that? You know it's wrong with that. People fucking go to church on Sunday and then they fucking go in their church buses. And, like, it's really obvious that they just don't want fucking people to vote. They don't want a lot of fucking black people to vote. That is simple.
They're disproportionately black in these poor black areas.
Yeah, southern. There's rich southern and poor southern. Poor southern areas are proportionally African American black. So it's an issue where they're targeting fucking areas that are obviously fucking, it's the equivalent of like targeting like a 78% Democratic state and trying to get all their ballots thrown out. That's what the equivalent of it is. It's trying to get all their ballots thrown out. Just a state that is, like a side lower part of the state that is heavily Democratic, or heavily Republican, trying to get the ballots thrown out. And that's you try to do that. That is basically trying to silence an entire fucking demographic, and that's what's happening with this in the church.
It's like, well, like we said, the lines are long because there's not a whole lot of places to vote. Or when they try to make it so instead of being able to vote from 7 to 7, they do 9 to 5, where people are working, so they can't get out to vote. Plus the Sunday. So you understand what I'm saying? That's kind of where you look into. It's like, okay, laws that don't specifically target black people, but have the negative impact of disproportionately targeting black people.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's not specifically targeting them, but it's targeting areas that they know for a damn fact. And then you can have statistics. You have statistics of the fucking populations. They know that these are proportionally black areas, and they do not. And it's not that they don't care; it's that they want to do this.
It's where you would have like a conversation around like critical race theory or different forms of oppression, or ways that like whiteness has intruded the system to oppress black people, right? Because usually it's white people voting on these things to stop really Democrats from voting, but it's like white Republicans wanting to stop black Democrats from being able to vote because they want to win, not necessarily because they're racist, though it is rather racist to not give a shit about black people's right to vote. But do you understand what I'm saying? Even if you disagree with me,
also necessarily oblivious to the situation. There's one thing, like I said, that since they don't specifically target black people, it is very difficult for fucking like middle-aged fucking like retired goddamn fucking veterans who have like fucking PTSD. They have no idea what the fuck like the internet correctly is, so they fucking take any information they want. So these people.
The controversy that's made up is people saying that this is being taught in schools and that kids should be. That's not true. It's not even a real controversy.
The fifth largest school district in America, Clark County, just decided that they were going to lower standards with regard to testing because they wanted to alleviate disparities in outcomes. That is an outgrowth of critical race theory. Can you draw a straight line to it? Yes.
That's a fair point, actually. So, like, I didn't know this was true, but like, we do have this is one of the biggest problems when we talk about systemic oppression. I think people with dishonesty about it. So we look at disparities between, let's just say, white and black people. For obviously, white and black person, black people underperform when it comes to black people underperform compared to white people because black people historically haven't had the same access to opportunities, and it's created a very toxic, progressive strand. There's tons of things that go into systemic oppression, right? Like slavery, redlining, segregation, honestly, are the way that we do welfare. That doesn't help people as much as it should. We need to reform our welfare system. We need to reform our prison system. There's so many different things that end up happening where black people are disproportionately targeted. But lowering standards rather than raising quality and raising education standards for giving black people more resources, that's not a positive thing. And so they're taking the easy way out, saying standardized testing is racist or just something that you hear, when the reality is black people just haven't had the same opportunity of education. And you notice how that's toxic, because you really think about that. you have, we live in a society where Black people have historical systemic oppression has drastically negatively impacted them. How do we solve this? And what you say is let's lower the standards to make Black people be able to compete, rather than to raise the standard of education for Black people. Yeah. You see how that will be another form of systemic oppression, is lowering standards. Because if you're not getting the same education, you don't have the same education standards, you're not going to be educated as well, and you're not going to be any more prepared for the workforce. So I would say that in and of itself would be some form of systemic oppression, pandering to other white people who are offended for Black people, and implementing a law based on outcomes rather than trying to promote the outcome being better, to just lower the bar for what the outcome should be.
100%. Because when you say that the meritocracy is an outgrowth of white supremacy, and then you suggest that I'm somehow denying that slavery took place, or that your great-great-great-grandfather was...
He quite literally did say that.
Because I'm
well, not literally, but he did suggest that.
When they are in school, to see if they are good at school, and then what you're purporting to push is just nonsense. It's just bullshit.
No, but I think it's also a leap to say that he thought that was bullshit, because that's not what it is. I mean, are we talking about 2021? Are we talking about 1861? Because the point is, can we talk about 1861 in 2021? Yes, we can. And I don't know who's against talking about this.
We can. It's like we don't embrace those policies now. So it's good to talk. It's good to talk about in the framing that we should acknowledge that we aren't a perfect country. Because that's been a narrative that we were pushing, I guess, even from when I was younger, that we were this perfect country. But
yeah, I didn't have any fucking clue we were dog shit. I learned very fucking quick. Before. Wait, your movie says nothing. Swear to God, I recognize that name. Yeah, I recognize this guy. Why is he debating your movie sucks? Why the fuck is he debating this guy? I swear to God, the fucking YouTubers in the old era have just all become conservative fucking hogs. I swear to fucking God. Like, every one of them.
Lynchings are a modern day thing that happens from the left. All the time. Have you been?
All right, let me recognize that voice. Ooh, new film theory. I watched that. Looks enjoyable. Alright, let's hear it.
So I just saw Space Jam: A New Legacy, and it was the worst movie I've seen all year. And there was a lot of competition. I've noticed quite a lot of people acting rather than a bunch of people.
Is that him? Oh, okay. Maybe your movie sucks is left wing, and maybe he fucking is. What? Okay, I'm confused. I gotta watch this entire fucking video. I gotta figure out why you're.
Lynchings.
Is he debating your movie sucks, or is he debating on some guy and your movie sucks is here?
Can you just admit you're screwing with me so I can just save 20 minutes?
Yeah, I had to turn on my ears. All right, man. Look, I'm not saying all Democrats are are racist or anything.
That's exactly what you said.
Would you admit that?
The throughout the history of the Democrat Party.
Hold on. Fact. Because if that's the case,
let me figure out where fucking your movie sex was in back here. Are you stuck on this entire thing the entire time?
With correspondence with Karl Marx, who was obviously left wing.
I do not know.
Abraham Lincoln.
I'm so confused. Why is your movie sucks in the fucking in a Dylan Burns video? You know what? Fuck it. Figure it out my damn self. So I get so YMS is a fucking left-leaning guy, and he's apparently friends with Dylan, and he apparently wanted to debate the fucking guy in that video, and he wouldn't go for it. So that's what it was. I thought for a second Dylan was debating Adam, aka YMS. So I was fucking confused. I was like, and then I went to check the voice, and it was completely different.
People ask me all the time about
from the guy in the video. I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
Don't make the cut. Look, here's one for you. When I first wanted to do an episode of
This may show is there a game theory that's better than the Captain America? Because I honestly rather have. No, alright. You can't find a new theory other than talk about Wreck Your Stomach and fucking film.
People ask me all the time about theories that don't make the cut. Look, here's one for you. When I first wanted to do an episode on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I was hoping that I could expose Bucky as a secret millionaire. You see, Falcon and the Winter Soldier deals a lot with Sam's financial troubles.
I know you. I feel like it's an easy fucking ringer right there. I guess you could it's not like it's like maybe public knowledge, but I genuinely believe that that fucking superhero is a fucking millionaire.
Family has banked with us for generations, but we cannot prove it. Which, in and of itself, is kind of ridiculous, considering he's a main hired gun for the world's most powerful private military. It's probably a theory for another day, but no one ever talks about Buck, even though he's had decades to grow his wealth while he sat in the ground frozen. I mean, my schools didn't teach me much about Buck.
Oh, okay. I get it. I thought the theory was fucking generally how he's like a secret millionaire. I know. Just generally because he was when he was fucking frozen under ice, he fucking was just gaining money for whatever the fuck he had.
Money, but they did teach me the power of compound interest, baby. Invest it now, and in a bunch of years, you're gonna be a millionaire. So I was like, I'm gonna calculate how much Bucky Barnes would earn in interest since 1942, and I bet that we're gonna find out that he's one of the richest characters in the Marvel universe. So I broke out the old number cruncher. Thanks to the 1942 Pay Readjustment Act, we know how much Bucky would be making throughout his career. As an Army private first class in World War II, his salary would have been about $50 a month. Doesn't sound like a lot, but remember, this is old-timey dollars. Those are always worth a bunch more. He probably got promoted up to corporal right out of training camp and started making $66 a month. By the time he visits Steve Rogers at the beginning of Captain America, he was a sergeant and would be making $78 a month until his last 2 months in service, in which a 5% bonus would kick in, earning him $81.90. That totals just around $2,788 throughout his military career. Let's then say that he was a financially savvy guy and got himself a 3% interest savings account compounded monthly, in which he deposited his whole paycheck. That means that through his military career, Bucky Barnes would have earned roughly $4,940.94. It's not exactly what I was hoping for, and definitely not enough money to warrant getting thrown off a train and losing your arm. But wait for it, after 78 years of compound interest, drum roll please. Oh, wait, that's it? It still only comes out to $51,143.50. After 78 years, Bucky is still not even beating the average income for an American male in 2020 at $52,004. Moral of the story, don't trust Mr. Cole, my 10th grade economics teacher. Compound interest, meh. All in on Dogecoin! Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that tries to do better. Speaking of being better, if you want to be better at working from home, check out the interview we just did over on the Rocket Learn YouTube channel, our sponsor for today's episode. Steph and I went on their new series, Big Change, to share our experiences trying to work at home with your significant other for nearly a decade. Nowadays, I think most of us are going through something like that. So learn the importance of headphones. Anos unfortunately was right. I talked about how a new abundance of resources and production would make life for the remaining population significantly easier. Well, this time around, we actually have the opposite situation. A world that had dealt with and moved past the 3.5 billion deaths built to only serve some 3.5 billion people, suddenly having to serve double that amount. That's the primary cause of the events of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Our sort of antagonist, Carly Morgan, easier. Well, this time around, we actually have the opposite situation. A world that had dealt with and moved past the 3.5 billion deaths, built to only serve some 3.5 billion people, suddenly having to serve double that amount.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So, is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier in the timeline where they would necessarily come back? They came back, they brought them back, and it was 3.5 billion people, like, just returning, and the resources were already allocated into a form of 3.5 billion people? Or was it they just, fucking 7 billion people just floated basically fucking through, population growth?
The primary cause of the events of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Our sort of antagonist, Carly Morgenthau, has benefited tremendously from what's now referred to as the Blip, along with a bunch of other outcasts, refugees, and marginalized groups who fled their oppressive countries during the snap times. These people do not want to go back to how life was before the Blip, and their organization, the Flag Smashers, has the goal of keeping country borders down to allow displaced people to stay in their new lives. But Carly isn't exactly peaceful about it. In her final act, she attacks a meeting of the Global Repatriation Council, which is an organization aiming to return things to the way they were pre-snap. She's eventually stopped by Sam Wilson as the brand new Captain America and killed by the Power Broker. Cut and roll credits, right? Wrong. Sam, as an ethnic minority, sympathizes with her mission and lectures the Global Repatriation Council members about being better in a nearly 4-minute monologue. For 4 minutes, he speaks truth to power. Yeah, stick it to those government bigwigs, is what the swelling and passion music wants you to believe, but when you actually listen to Sam's words, they sound pretty, but they're ultimately hollow.
Our peacekeeping troops will begin relocating people soon. The terrorists only set us back a bit.
Yeah, stop calling them terrorists.
Stop calling them terrorists, he says, about a group of people that bombed buildings and killed people to get their message across. No matter how noble your message is, that's just not okay. But it continues.
And the people who reappeared only to find someone else living in their family home, they just end up homeless. I get it, but you have no idea how complicated this situation is. You know what? You're right, and that's a good thing. We finally have a common struggle now.
Way to deflect the question there, Sam. Government dude's like, hey, you don't get it, superhero guy. This is a tough problem to solve. And Sam responds with well, yeah, but now you know what it's like to feel helpless and hated by people. That is not the point of this conversation, Sam. The senators are talking about how there's no perfect solutions to these humanitarian problems. You're talking about idea for everyone, which is, of course, where this is going, because this is film theory. I want to acknowledge that for as hard of a time as I'm giving Sam here, and more importantly, not Sam himself, but the writers of this 2020, every single person watching this and writing, editing, publishing this felt like our health, our communities, our families, jobs, financial security, and personal liberties were all put into jeopardy. No matter how